Hey guys, good afternoon. It's Angelo, Christian with Real Estate Insider. Today we're talking about transactional funding, a very powerful tool. And if it's this weapon, if you use it right, you can buy a ton of real estate and get rich and buy properties with no money down and get 100% financing. It's like having a silent partner, an investor, to come and fund your down payment and your closing costs. And you don't need the seller to participate or do a seller second. You can use transactional funding, our third-party investor company, to actually fund the down payment and closing costs to be able to buy your deal. I'm gonna explain this to you because it's actually mind-blowing, and I wanna release this out to the world to let you guys know about how powerful transactional funding is. And if you find the right deal, because there are some requirements to make it work, but if you use it right, you can literally blow up your business and accumulate a lot of real estate. And that's what we do with our show. We educate and empower the world to help investors all over the country to scale and blow up their business. So transactional funding, at its simplest means, that you're having a third-party investor, right, that comes in to cover your down payment or your closing costs to meet to bridge the gap with the equity requirements. Now, there is a fee for it. It's not free, but it's the only way that you can get 100% financing to buy a deal without having the seller carry a second note or do owner financing. So let me break it down to you. Let me explain how transactional funding works. All right. So how to buy property with no money down is the essence of it, right? And we're gonna go into a math equation because I love math. But what you're doing, as I said, you're rolling the down payment into the closing costs into the loan. I'm gonna break down the table and show you exactly how that's done. If we do the hard money option, there's no credit or income check. There is a 20% fee to use the capital. I'll explain what that means. But I just wanna let you guys know what's out there, what's possible, to open up your mind to use the transactional funder. So I'm going to show you the math here because I think it's extremely powerful to use. I'm going to give you an example of a deal that we just did. So here's a deal that we just did with the transactional funding. A $6 million was a retail strip. Okay. The value of it was $7 million. That was the value. Seller wanted $6 million. So the seller was not interested in doing owner financing. He didn't want to carry a second mortgage. So we had to figure out a different way. And that's where we brought in our transactional funding. So let me explain to you how this works. So to buy a $6 million property, you'd have to put like 30% down. So where are you gonna get that money, right? 30% down on 6 million is 1.8. So you have to put 6 million times 30% equals $1.8 million down. So the investor is trying to buy this property with no money down. It's worth 7 million. So how are we gonna do it? Right? So what we have to do is figure out how to make this work. The transactional funder is going to charge 20% on this right here. So 20% on 1.8 million is 360 grand, $360,000 origination fee. So now you're at 2,160,000 cost, the total cost to do this. So if the value is 7 million and the seller wants 6 million, we have to get creative and try and figure out a way how do you do this deal? And then you have closing costs, right? The closing costs are going to be about 200,000. Wow. So now everyone's probably scratching their head, man. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? How are we going to do this? Right? So I'm going to show you how to actually make this work. So we're at total cost now plus the 200,000. At 2,360,000. But the good thing is we have $1 million in equity here. So we got to figure out something, right? So we have to figure something out. So how can we do it, guys? Well, this is what we do. We take the sales price, and if everyone's got this so far, I can erase this so that way you can see how to make this work. So we know exactly what we're doing. So we're going to take the sales price to 7 million. And then we have to add our fees, the 20%, and then we also have to add the closing cost. And we know the seller wants the net 6 million. Okay. So sales price 7 million minus the down payment 30%. It's 2.1. CC's closing costs are 200 grand. And then the fee for the funding was 20% of the 7 million is 140K. Right? So what that puts us at is 7 million minus 2 million. So that puts us at 4 million. Let's see, 7 million minus 2.45 is 4.55 million. So the way this will work is he's going to have a first mortgage to us for the 7 million minus the 30%. So he'll have a first mortgage loan to us for 4.9 million. And then he'll do owner financing for just a small amount of $400,000. The seller will get all of their money at the closing table, with the exception of $400,000. So we're going to advance funds of $4.5 million. The seller walks away at closing with $4.55 million. Just has to do a small owner financing of $400,000, and that's something that the buyer, the new buyer, can do with the seller, and you can get a first mortgage with awesome loan terms. Okay, so it's a really wonderful opportunity to be able to use transactional funding because you can get a great interest rate. You don't have to do hard money. Our interest rates start at 6% with the transactional funding, so it's very, very powerful, and it's a long-term loan, usually 25 to 30 years. So if you think about what we just did here, you're able to get your down payment assistance and your closing costs all wrapped up into your loan. And so that way you don't have to put any money down, and you don't have to do a huge 50% seller second. You can just do a small owner financing for a very small fraction. Now, in this example, I want to show you something I think that's really, really important. If you find a property that has a lot of equity, that can even be even more powerful. So let me explain to you. Let's say that in this example, the property was worth 8 million, right? And the seller wants the net 6 million. So now you have 2 million of equity. Okay, so in this example, it's 30% down. We said the seller wants a net 6 million. So the 30% down is going to be 2.4 million, and the fee for the 2.4 million is going to be 450K fee. So you have 2.4 million down payment, 450K fee, and then you have another $200,000 in closing costs, right? So if you look at this right here, the seller is going to get all of their money because we're putting down 30%. We're going to finance 70%. So the lien that they're going to have to us is going to be for 8 million minus the 2.4 million. And then let's say that the seller pays the settlement charges for these two things right here. So the loan's going to be for 8 million minus 2.4 million, and that's going to be a loan for 5.6 million, right? And then the seller is going to get all their money at closing, and then they just have to cover these two closing costs here, and then you can do owner financing for those. So it's a very, very powerful thing if you think about it, because you get a low interest rate, you get all your closing costs and your down payment included, and the seller doesn't have to do owner financing for, because in a normal situation like this, the seller would have to do owner financing for like 3 million. it's way too risky for the seller. You see, and they don't want to do it. It puts them on way too much liability for the seller. So this is another strategy in how you can buy. Now this is only used for investment properties or rental properties, and the loans have to be $500,000 or higher. It's available nationwide. So we can do it on the hard money side, or we can do it on the commercial side, depending on the loan program. So if you're an investor, use transactional funding. If a property has a lot of equity, it's very, very powerful. You can use this to blow up and scale your business. Those are the key elements though. The property has to have a lot of equity. So if you have questions about this, you want to get more information about transactional funding to blow up and scale your business, call us at 832-431-6331 and check out my other video, guys.